What does Frodo's struggle to destroy the ring in The Return of the King reveal to us about the darker aspects of human nature and psychological development? Just a quick reminder to like and subscribe as it helps the channel greatly. Now, back to the video. Over the course of The Return of the King, we see Frodo's painful deterioration as a consequence of his burden to carry the ring. Frodo is becoming weaker physically and mentally along the journey, with Gollum as his guide who is plotting to kill him in order to reclaim the ring. Samwise suspects Gollum the entire time and is saddened and frustrated by Frodo's willingness to trust him. Frodo's journey to destroy the ring can be understood symbolically as the heroic mission to confront and overcome the collective shadow. The shadow is all the feared and repressed parts of the psyche buried in the unconscious of both the individual and the collective. It's this mission to overcome the collective shadow that facilitates the process of individuation. This is a Jungian concept of development, which in essence is the process of making the unconscious conscious. The ego is the conscious personality of an individual, and its journey of development requires the integration of the unconscious. A crucial aspect of individuation is the integration of the shadow. The ring carries with it the spirit of Sauron, corrupting whoever bears it. In order for Frodo to destroy the ring, he must overcome the ring's activation of his own shadow. If Frodo falls prey to its pull, then he will become a slave to the will of Sauron and thus be consumed by the collective shadow. This is what makes his journey not only a heroic one, but also archetypal. Frodo is dealing with emaciation, while also having to constantly fight the temptation to give in to his darker nature, which the ring calls upon. Gollum demonstrates surprising utility with his knowledge of the terrain of Middle-earth, which echoes the often surprising potential of the shadow when one engages with it. However, he is also the cautionary mirror to Frodo of someone who lost themselves entirely to the shadow. Therefore, much like one's own engagement with the shadow, there will be surprising potential that can be integrated, but also dangerous potential that must be contained. We see this play out tragically with Frodo and his paranoia, eventually being swayed by Gollum that he can't trust Samwise. In essence, this is the wrestle with the shadow. Frodo is barely holding on to his conscious will, and all of his repressed fears and darker potential rises to the surface. One of the challenges within shadow integration is not to be consumed by it entirely, and yet before one integrates it, they must first come face to face with it. They have to feel and comprehend what has been lurking within their unconscious mind, which can often be an intimidating and overwhelming experience. After all, whatever is in the depths of the shadow has remained there due to the ego's fear of it. But the reason why it is essential that one confronts and integrates this is because as long as it lurks in the depths unconsciously, it grows over time and then poses a much greater risk of consuming the ego. This, in essence, is what is happening on the collective level in the story as the spirit of Sauron has grown and festered across Middle-earth over many years, threatening to destroy it. So Frodo is being slowly ground down by his own shadow in its response to the ring's call. Yet despite the dire circumstances, there are moments of hope. When Frodo is within the giant spider Shelob's cave and at risk of being eaten by her, he remembers the phial filled with the light of Eärendil's star given to him by Galadriel. This shines brightly, stunning the spider and allowing him to escape, and plays a pivotal role in helping Samwise defeat Shelob, saving Frodo's life. This further echoes the symbolism of the dangers of being consumed by the shadow, and the light of Eärendil's star can be understood as the illuminating light of consciousness opening a pathway to integration. In Frodo's final moments with the ring, he is unable to destroy it. He nearly loses himself to the shadow and takes the ring for himself. However, Gollum re-emerges fighting Frodo for the ring. It's in this fight that Gollum falls to his death with the ring into the fires of Mordor. This is a fascinating piece of imagery because Gollum actually serves as a mirror to Frodo, everything he could become if he falls to the ring and is consumed by the collective shadow. Despite Frodo falling momentarily to the ring, he ends up having one final fight with this terrible potential, Gollum, eventually overcoming it. With the destruction of the ring, the collective shadow is overcome. However, the years following aren't so simple for Frodo. Despite the victory, he is still struggling with pain physically and psychologically. This speaks to the complexity of integrating the shadow. Frodo, on his journey to overcome the collective shadow, came face to face not just with the malevolence of the world, but also within himself. While he overcomes this ultimately, he is left scarred by it. The young man full of innocence who left the Shire returned as a far graver individual. This is actually a good thing and a sign of maturation. However, his inner struggle points to an important aspect of integration and the difficulty of it. When an individual comes face to face with the shadow, they are changed. The ego structure as it understood itself is no more and is forced into a kind of death. It now must contend with the unconscious aspects of itself it was unaware of until that point. This, unsurprisingly, is often an overwhelming experience and can leave an individual scarred. This requires the individual to process all that they have confronted within the world and themselves and come to a place of acceptance. It is this process that produces the feeling of wholeness and transformation that takes them to a higher stage of existence. Frodo was granted special access to the Undying Lands to help him heal. The Undying Lands are known for their beauty, peace, and immortality of its inhabitants. This points to this transformational outcome of having confronted and overcome the shadow. The Undying Lands can be understood as that state of wholeness which doesn't deny the darkness within, but understands and accepts it. In fact, it is a beautiful image of the archetype of the capital S self. The self is essentially the totality of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious, and thus wholeness. The self is what drives the ego's journey of individuation until the ego accurately reflects the self. Frodo's journey to the Undying Lands can be understood as the ego's meeting with the self archetype and the healing experience of wholeness after the confrontation with the shadow. Gandalf's speech to Pippin outlines this process and its promise beautifully. Death is just another path, one that we must all take. The grey rain curtain of this world rolls back, and all turns to silver glass, and then you see it. White shores and beyond. A far green country under a swift sunrise. A wonderful assurance of what awaits us if we have the courage to truly face ourselves. You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.